Welcome everyone to a Delco Nerd Network Hot Take. Guys, if you haven't seen a hot take before, well, it's where a few friends get in a basement and we give our thoughts, we give our opinions on a TV show, a movie, or a game. Today, it's going to be a movie, and that movie is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. My name is Anthony Ragucci, and here to discuss my esteemed guest, fresh off the archaeological dig, Dr. Pat Donavon, back again. Pat, how are you, man? Glad to have you back. I know we did the Indiana Jones rewind review like in anticipation for this movie, so we're finally full circle, man.
Yeah, I'm quite well. Good to be back.
Yeah, thank you for coming back. All right, so here we are. Why don't you start us off, man? I was gonna do it in like Trio couldn't make it today, but how I wanted to do it was sort of do it in like who saw it first order, which would be you. You saw it IMAX. Probably not 3D.
Just no, regular. IMAX 2D, and saw it in King of Prussia.
Yeah.
Using their digital IMAX projector, which is quite nice on that beautiful silver screen in that new auditorium.
Yeah, so what did you think? Was it, where was your bar? How did you feel going in? Go for it, whatever you want.
Okay, so this is the first movie that's not directed by Steven Spielberg. It's not written by George Lucas. So this is the first Indiana Jones movie, like full-length motion picture, that is not directly the brainchild of those two individuals.
Correct. Yeah.
This was written by a whole lot of people, and it's directed by
James Mangold.
Thank you, James Mangold, our good friend. And Mangold is
friend of the show.
Honestly, I'm a big fan of his. I've enjoyed his work since Copland, since he worked with Sylvester Stallone and Ray Liotta. That goes to back in the 1990s.
90s, okay.
Yeah, so he's been around a long time.
Right.
And his work is really influential. Like, we have Peter Berg, the actor turned film director. He did like what was the oil reserve movie with Mark Wahlberg? He's done a bunch.
It's like Horizon. It's like I'm getting like
Deepwater Horizon.
Deepwater Horizon. Yeah.
All right. So Peter Berg is he was an actor who was working on the movie Copland, and he was introduced to Mangold. Then Mangold was directing movies, and Mangold showed him how to direct a movie using flashcards. So point is he's got a lot more influence than I think most people realize. And he directed Logan. I mean, he's done a bunch of.
Was that the last thing he did? I feel like
I don't know.
I was like, he had to have done something in between, but
he's done Identity. He's done horror movies. He's done cop dramas. He's done superhero movies. So he's a talented guy, and I've liked him for a long time. And I was excited to see what he did with the property, especially after the disappointment that was the last movie. And there was a huge amount of negative press that came out for this one right away.
Which, the 4 on IGN was like a big how? And I don't agree with that 4.
The thing about it is, I'm actually grateful for that in a way, because what it did was it took my expectations and it really brought it down to reality. When I went into the theater, I thought, all right, I know that I'm not going to see one of the original 3 movies, okay?
Right.
We're going to be seeing someone else's interpretation of this property at a different point in time, and I'm excited to see that because I like the guy who's making it. And I was not disappointed with the movie at all. I thought it was a light, breezy, fun, action-packed spectacle picture, and it's exactly the kind of movie that I want to go see when I go to summer at the movies. So,
dude, I feel like this movie is kind of kicking off. Honestly, correct me if I'm wrong, man. I think one of the biggest summer movie seasons ever. We have Mission Impossible next week. Barbie, Oppenheimer. I don't know what's after that, but we have like 4 huge movies. Maybe you can throw The Flash in there if we're feeling nice.
Okay.
But we have a big July for movies, and I like even last year it was just like Top Gun Maverick, and that killed it and really carried the summer box office. But we kind of have a nice spree of movies here, and I happen to agree with you. I do think it's entertaining. I did enjoy it. It is definitely not as bad as The Crystal Skull. Yeah. Absolutely not. we didn't start off with a CGI groundhog. We started off with a nice reel would look like a lock on a door. And that's the first thing I was like, are they going to do like a CG shot right in the beginning? Let's see it. And I was like, they didn't do it. But yeah, I thought it was fun. I think fun is like a very good way to describe this movie. While I was thinking about it, like sort of after I saw it, I feel like I was like kind of picking it apart. There are some things like I don't enjoy. Like I don't really like Helena Shaw at all. I really couldn't understand what they were trying to do with her character. Was she like a piece of shit that you like don't like, or was she like a redeemable character? Like I almost kind of wish they made her the villain. I think it would have been more interesting because they kind of kept teasing you with that like a few times. Like she would have like these fake outs, but I was kind of like, oh, is this where she turns? Like I'm like believing this, and I'm like, oh no, she's just pulling a goof on Mads Mikkelsen here. Yeah, and there were like a few other things like we definitely have to talk about Harrison Ford's de-aging, which looked good, but what threw me off, the voice.
Still shots looked good. Whenever they do a slow shot of his face or a still shot, it looks great. Whenever the first 30 minutes of the movie, and this is my opinion. The first 30 minutes of the movie is just some consistently poor decisions with CGI. They really did not have to do. It looks like it looks like a bad cartoon.
It's dark on top of him, like it's trying to hide like what
just
you're saying when it's
something else.
Right.
You don't. It doesn't have to be that.
Did
way.
the voice stand out to you as like it sounds like 80-year-old Harrison Ford on, I would say, a 30-something-year-old Harrison Ford's body, and it like didn't like I couldn't disassociate. I was like, I know this is fake. Like I couldn't buy it.
There's this it's this thing. It's called the uncanny valley.
Yes.
You're familiar with the
Yeah, I mean, feel free to explain.
All right. Well, the uncanny valley is human beings, when we look at something, if it's supposed to look real and it's not quite real, there's something, even if we can't put our finger on what's not real about it, it disturbs us. It is this...
Polar Express is like, I feel like the great example of that, where I feel like anytime anyone brings that movie up, Uncanny Valley, it's like the first thing anyone talks about.
So, right out the gate, we've got some Uncanny Valley issues. A series, it's a very well-directed, well-constructed action sequence. You can tell that he really put a lot of thought into every single one of those shots, and there's good humor involved there. Mm-hmm. It's got all of these elements that are... not just reminiscent of Indiana Jones, but you can tell this is the movie he's excited to make. I feel like there's enthusiasm behind it. However, the whole time I'm slightly off-put by all of these really weird face replacement shots.
Did they do it with Mads Mikkelsen? Like I kind of
they de-aged Mads, absolutely.
Because you know what was funny?
It's the age difference is much less.
True.
So it's not as drastic a change.
I was waiting for we'll get to the time travel of it at some point. But I was kind of waiting because I was looking at Mads and I'm like, he doesn't look like he aged a day, in my opinion.
That's funny. Yeah.
Like I really didn't. I guess like I'm used to looking at Mads Mikkelsen, but there was something that like I'm like I almost could not tell the difference. I'm like, is there something mystical at play here as to how he survived that pull to the face? Like, that's all I was thinking about. I'm like, how is he, like, okay? No big scar, no disfigured face. Like, I was kind of expecting that, so I was like, oh, they're gonna reveal that, like, maybe he, like, he was able to, like, access the dial's power and, like reverse age himself. I was waiting for that. I don't know. It sounds like you did not, like, expect that.
I did. I just...
I'm just watching a normal movie.
when I go to a movie, I am willfully ignorant. Okay, like
that's a good quality to have sometimes.
I'm not interested. Like I don't have this. There are some people that enjoy going into a movie and picking it apart. Right? That's this strange egotistical journey people have.
Love doing that with the plot.
Yeah, they rip it apart and then they get afterwards and they're like, oh, it's so fake, it's so stupid. I'm like, all right, well, you successfully ruined that movie for yourself. Because it's the willing suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
You have to go into it with this sort of childlike I don't know, faith, and you want to be taken on. You want to be fooled.
And don't get me wrong, that didn't ruin the movie for me. But I was just like, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, this is odd. Obviously, Harrison Ford is 80 years old in real life. Mads Mikkelsen's probably like approaching 60s, I would imagine.
What you're talking about is after the fact, going back and considering and thinking about the movie. That's not exactly the same thing that I was referring to.
Yeah.
You know, I've done this. I do the same thing. You know, when I talk to my buddy Tony, you know, he'll send me these like snide little, like he's thinking about it and it's ticking him off, and I'm just kind of like brush that stuff off to the side. But this is an interesting situation.
What did you think about Harrison Ford coming back to it? Do you feel like he kind of gave it his all? Did he phone it in? What'd you think?
100% he gave it his all. I'm very proud.
I would agree with you.
You know, the thing is the big complaint one of the bigger complaints that I had with the last movie was they were trying to, I don't know, it was like they were trying to pretend he was still 30 years old. The same thing they did with Star Wars, right? When they brought him back, and he was dressed the same way, he was acting the same way.
Right.
It's like this nostalgia trip that they're trying to pawn off. I am that audience, and I'm not buying it, right? If you look at Last Crusade, right? They bring James, literally the coolest guy on planet Earth is his dad. They bring Sean Connery back as James Bond, but he doesn't play James Bond. He's not pulling guns out and trying to like grab women. He's not doing any of that young guy stuff. There's no action sequences around him. He's playing his age. And that's what I felt that they really didn't do in the last movie, and they really did very well in this movie. Was they did justice to the character. First, I'm sitting there with my buddies, and I say he needs to retire. And then the next sequence is him retiring. I'm like, that's good writing. They were respecting the time period. They're respecting the character. That to me means a lot.
I do kind of like, I don't know how you feel about this with like movies. Like I think like the Expendables franchise is kind of like based on the fact that these are a bunch of old action stars and they're old, and we're gonna tell you they're old like every chance we get. I feel like that gets a little tiring, and like they did it here obviously, and it seems to you that you liked it, but I'm kind of just like, I get it. Harrison Ford is old, right? Like I feel like I don't need to be like told.
You felt like that was over. You felt like that was too much.
I wouldn't say too much, but I think I'm just acutely aware of the fact that, I think it's safe to say that this is Harrison Ford's last Indiana Jones. He will not be coming back. Whether
he said that.
Yeah. But you never know. But Harrison Ford's age is
80 years old.
Right.
And that's not to disparage him. I thought he got around pretty well. You know, they used a bunch of stunt doubles, but in Raiders of the Lost Ark, they used a lot of stunt doubles. That's not necessarily a new thing. But I thought his personal action was way dialed down. He's not, jumping from car to car. He's not really doing those kinds of spectacular stunts. Now, he does in the beginning during the de-aging, which makes sense. But then later on in the movie, he's in a car, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Right. But that's, he still has those reflexes, I guess is what they're trying to say. But at the same time, he's not capable of doing the same over-the-top heroic feats. He's not holding onto the Mercedes sign like he does in Raiders and falling underneath the car and then climbing underneath the car.
Yeah, and I think let me take it a step back. I think I'm just tired of that the age trope in movies in general. Not this movie. It's just the fact that I knew they were gonna do it, so I was kind of waiting for it. It's like, oh, he's retiring. He's old, But like, I guess that makes sense, right? What else are they gonna do? Like you said, it just makes sense that they're gonna. He's retiring from what college does he work at in this movie?
I think he's in Chicago.
Is that where he? I thought it was like, is this New York, Chicago? I couldn't.
Chicago.
Okay, I couldn't like tell. Do you remember where he is in Crystal Skull?
No.
Yeah, I was just like, is this the same place? I don't know.
But I love that when he's teaching his class. In the first movie, you've got this the beautiful,
the hot professor,
and she's got "love you" printed on her eyelids, and she's blinking them at that sort of thing.
Time has changed,
now nobody's listening to him. Nobody cares what he has to say. It's I don't know. I think that is
appropriate.
Yeah. It's realistic.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that scene up because that's the first thing I thought. It's like, I remember when he was the hot professor, and they were like, girl, like this class was full, and now nobody gives a shit.
It's a lack of respect.
And I think Mads Mikkelsen, Schmidt, has a line, and he says something about like the world doesn't respect people like them anymore. I guess like archaeologists, people like looking for, or like historians, I guess, even if you want to bring it to a more general sense. And I think he's kind of right. He's not wrong.
Mathematicians, or the people who are in the limelight today are the people who are
going to the moon.
Well, they're TV personalities, or they're influencers. YouTube influencers. They're not mathematicians. They're not archaeologists. That's why. And I also thought that was, again, this is something they did do well in Crystal Skull, is that they did the time period very, 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 very well.
Yeah.
And that's all credit goes to Mangold for that, which is it's the moon landing. So we're in the late 60s. We've got the hippies. We've got German scientists.
You're good. Sorry.
Why, thank you. German scientists in why, Anthony? German scientists working in the United States in higher positions.
Yeah.
Right. Not that kind of thing.
Which
absolutely happened.
Which I thought was interesting, and I kind of wish they went in on a little bit more. I like that the black CIA agent. I thought she was really interesting because I'm like, why is she working with these like goons? Like it didn't like I'm like, what's going on here? Why is the government kind of like tolerating his hired guns? And then she dies, and I'm like, and then we never really got any more of that, because I found that interesting. And he like,
things in life are unsatisfying sometimes. That's what makes death in life interesting and tragic, is that it's often unexpected.
Yeah.
So that
poetic.
Yeah, it is.
Poetic.
I thought that they did a really good job with the setting, all of the technical aspects of that. Nothing but love. And anyway, where
what was I even saying? Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about Schmidt and his character. How do you think? This is Mads Mikkelsen's bread and butter. He's like,
I don't like him.
Really?
I don't like him.
Like beyond in this movie, or just in general?
What is he like? I've never seen Mads Mikkelsen be anything other than Mads Mikkelsen on screen. Right now, the same.
You're not wrong.
The same can be said for Jack Nicholson. Okay, but Jack Nicholson has charisma. Mads Mikkelsen has
definitely doesn't.
Weird eyes, not a lot of charisma. I didn't like him as a Bond villain in Casino Royale. I don't.
On, Pat.
I'm telling you,
You're
man. I just have never seen him. When I think of, if you're not going to have charisma, okay, which is Robert De Niro, which is Al Pacino, which is Jack Nicholson, then you're going to have versatility. All right, versatility is going to be Dustin Hoffman. All right, it's going to be Daniel Day-Lewis. So that's the way I look at it. Mads is kind of like the menacing equivalent of, I would say, Mark Wahlberg, which is, I don't have a whole lot of respect for Mark Wahlberg as an actor in general.
I
would
agree.
Good casting agent. He always plays a cop, but this is the only thing he can do. Mads Mikkelsen can only play menacing.
And you're right. I do like Mads Mikkelsen. You know what I think would be, Death Stranding, right?
I'm familiar with it. I haven't played. So Kojima's game, yeah.
Yeah, so he's in it, but he really doesn't play a Mads like on the surface he's very Mads, but I feel like once you get past the surface of his character Cliff, he's very not Mads Mikkelsen-y.
All right.
Yeah. So but like you're right. Every character he's kind of in is sort of this uncharismatic either villain, or like I remember in Polar he's not the villain, but like he still plays the same character that he always plays. And in my opinion, he does exactly that here. Fine,
he's functional.
I was going to say flawlessly, but I think that's too much praise. Like he does a good job. He plays the role he was clearly hired for. But yeah, and I liked how he was like the ex-Nazi scientist who work on the V1 rockets that sent the Apollo mission to space. Interesting background, and like I was mentioning, I wish they kind of went more into it. And I don't really think he, like, his arc as a villain is like the greatest by the end. Like I feel like it's the movie and the narrative is so much more beyond him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because the main theme that I took away from the movie is the inescapability of fate.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is very
And
much
time, yeah.
it's time and fate. Which I mean,
Well, the same thing, I guess. Yeah.
but if you think about, I'm not going to go back on Star Wars, but if you go back, I mean, if you George Lucas though, the original movie Star Wars, the theme of fate is tied into all of the different actions of all of the characters throughout the entire narrative. It's, in my opinion, his finest movie for that very reason, because he doesn't actually tell you any of these things. It's just the characters play them out throughout the course of the movie. So when I watch this, I think this is George Lucas, right? That is, and you're not going to get that from, I don't know, some Saturday Evening Post review or something like that. They're not going to go that far into it, and honestly, I don't think they'll be able to recognize it. But when I saw that theme right there, I was like, this fits directly into the canon of what George Lucas was doing in the 70s. And to me, that means a lot. Again, it's all about respect, and it's all there.
Yeah. I do feel like since we brought up the time portion of it, I do feel like the movie, I don't think jump the shark is the word or the phrase I want to use, but I feel like it kind of gets like I can kind of see the board meeting where they planned out this movie. All right, we did, Nazi treasure stuff. We did Crusade stuff. We did aliens, time travel. And someone was like, "You're a genius." It must have been so simple because it wasn't really like the next big thing that they could do.
You got to checking boxes,
right?
Of
right.
course.
And I'm and I just didn't, and I was like kind of wowed by it at first. I'm like, holy shit, they're going back in time through what looks like a naturally occurring wormhole in the sky, which I guess we'll deal with.
Which is cool.
I'm like,
this is fun.
I'm like, holy shit, and I'm like, I think I'm just surprised about how much they did. Archimedes meeting Indiana Jones, for God's sakes. I'm like, this is pretty wild.
They take it all the way.
Yeah,
that's why and that's, in the end, they did not sissy out. They went all the way.
Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like jump the shark isn't the right word. I guess I was so surprised and a tad off put that they did it, because it was just so like, holy shit. Like, whoa, like, what do we, oh my God, like, what do we, I'm like, as soon as they went through the wormhole, I'm like, it's his plane that they saw that's on his sarcophagus. Yeah. I'm like, that's what is.
Yeah, the propeller.
Yeah, it clicked instantly. I was like, he's gonna meet him.
And the watch.
Yeah, that I didn't pick up until he actually picked it up. And I was like, did he craft it? Because it when it was all old and stuff, it looked like there were gears in it, something that I guess he could have made. I'm like, did he make something off something he saw? I was like, oh no, he just took it.
His watch.
He just took it. Yeah, and I was, but when he was being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna stay. I'm like, I don't know. I thought about that. And I'm kind of like how they didn't.
But he does. Okay.
Go for it.
Where am I going to go with this? Everybody is mistaken in this movie. Everybody thinks that something is happening. They think, now are we doing spoil? Are we? I mean, we're in spoiler alert.
End. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, do whatever you want.
All right, the Mads thinks that Archimedes' dial is a time travel device, which is going to take him wherever he wants to go. Okay, Mads is mistaken, right?
Right.
Indiana Jones also has the same conclusion, right? They all think that this is what Archimedes' dial is designed for. What it really is it's a call to aid, right? He's trying to bring help back to this specific point in time, and he fails anyway, right?
Right.
And so I love the idea that everybody's wrong. Whenever there's a bunch of
characters. It is a good point.
I mean,
to bring up that they are
protagonists wrong,
even Archimedes.
Antagonists wrong, Archimedes wrong. They,
yeah.
Everything that they try to do, they can't escape their fate. It's just good writing.
Oh man, dude, that is a really good point. Especially putting it not even in the fact of our characters, but within Archimedes, he tried to, I guess, change time, in a weird sense. I don't think he realized he was doing that. I guess in the moment, but yeah, that's what he tried to do and failed. Yeah,
and failed. So it's like I said, what impresses me about about the story, about the writing, and about the plot, and about the realization of that is that they didn't pull any punches. I mean, they really gave Mangold, obviously they gave him carte blanche. I read that the movie cost $295 million to make. I don't know that, and not including marketing, which is insane. And I mean, it's actually insane even for Disney. I don't think there's any way they're going to be able to make that back.
Yeah, I don't think the opening weekend box office was great, right?
No, I think it was. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't. It was less than spectacular.
It was not what it needed to be.
Crystal Skull made $800 million overall. This, I mean, maybe they can make $500 million, which is probably what they're going to have to. Maybe they'll break even.
See, and what they don't have against them is now week to week there's better movies coming out. So like, if I'm between Oppenheimer and Dial of Destiny, you better believe I'm probably going to go see Oppenheimer.
What we hope are better movies.
Yeah, true.
But Oppenheimer's also, I mean, it's very different kind of it's
not the same.
Totally different
totally
kind
different
of movie.
Yeah.
So this is a breezy, fun, family-friendly adventure action movie.
This is the summer blockbuster for
Correct.
all intents and purposes. Yeah.
And I don't know. I felt like everything that I needed to pull away from that movie in order to have a good time, I did. Now, would I go out and see it again in the theater because it was so absolutely not.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. But that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy it very much, and that when I see it again, I won't enjoy it again in the future.
I mean, it's definitely like I still don't understand how IGN gave it a 4. I just don't.
People are
It's like I can understand the gripes with Crystal Skull, and we talked about it with our rewind review, and it was like pretty obvious that just some of the choices were like, what are we doing here? Like, why do this? Why, like, the CGI gopher, the monkey scene,
nuclear bomb,
and actually, that's a great segue. I sort of like how they brought it up, at least.
Yeah, they didn't write it off.
His son died in, I guess, was it Vietnam?
Vietnam.
Yeah, I mean, they don't explicitly say when.
It could have been Korea, but
when did we land on the moon?
69.
Yeah, it was before Vietnam, so it must have been Korea.
No, Vietnam was happening. Vietnam.
Really?
The conflict in Vietnam.
I thought Vietnam was like early 70s.
Conflict in Vietnam was going on in the very early 60s, but it didn't escalate until it was LBJ who was the one who escalated it. He described it as it's like a grandmom's nightgown. It covers everything. That's the type of military power that was assigned. So it was LBJ who was the one who was responsible for
like the draft.
ramping up the conflict and making it into the full-scale war that it became, and then it was Nixon who brought the troops.
Because I was trying to think, I'm like, because when he said that, I'm like, it can't be Vietnam. The moon landing wasn't like
it was
like JFK was still alive.
It's a long
So I guess you could say a problem. I mean, it could have been Vietnam. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
That's what it.
But yeah, and then Marion was like, which I found it odd how they kind of brought her back at the end, and like it seemed like she was not doing well, and then I guess like she comes back, and I guess she's like.
I mean, that
okay.
they just slap that together at the end. It's not exactly the best ending, but
it is interesting. How Indiana Jones is kind of like he has like nothing.
I mean,
in his life, it's like they kind of put him on rock bottom.
At 80 years old, he has his job, and everybody drinks the whole movie. By the way, I love that. There's not a lot of smoking. All right, everybody should have been smoking, and everybody should have been drinking the whole time. But there's definitely a lot of alcoholic consumption,
like
which is great. That's what they should
drinking.
be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
Speaking of drinking, what do you think of Antonio Banderas' weird character in this? Like, why cast him for that?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Is that Antonio Banderas? Like, for like 7 lines?
Antonio. That's
Indy. Me.
Look, they seem to find things very easily. Like I said, if you want to just pull the thing apart, it's pretty easy. They seem to
and that's what I was doing.
They just go to fall and lay out, here's this treasure, or here's this adventure we're going to. They sort of rope them together really loosely, and the plot seems to move along, which works against it and works for it. Maybe they could have spent a little bit more time on developing those plot points, like going into the bottom of the ocean and Antonio, and a little bit less time in the love triangle chase sequence throughout
Yeah.
Cairo or wherever they were.
Because of the T.
Were they in Istanbul?
No, because of the T.
Tanzania?
That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Could have been a little bit, cut 5 minutes out of that really long chase sequence.
What did you think of Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, Helena Shaw? I brought it up. I didn't really like her, but I think you mentioned like before we started recording that you liked her, so I'm interested to hear.
Okay. So at first I was like, oh, this woman looks rather sexless, right? That was my initial. I was like, she seems like she checks a lot of boxes.
Sure.
And she's not too beautiful. She's a little bit awkward.
She's educated and smart.
Very educated and smart.
Yeah.
So we got that Mary. What is it? A Mary Sue thing going on?
Yeah. Well, probably a little opposite of it.
Well, but she makes mistakes throughout the story. She's charismatic. I like that about the actress. There are moments of strange sexual tension, not between her and Indiana, but between her and other characters.
Yeah.
So she is a more fleshed out human being. That's another thing about the writing in the movie that really impressed me, was the fact that each one of the characters has the ability to grow throughout the story. They all start out one way and they end the movie slightly changed by their interactions with each other. I feel like that is not only mimesis, it resembles life, art resembling life, okay? Because I feel like that's what happens in real life, is we meet people and we develop relationships with them, and then those relationships eventually end for whatever reason, and then when that happens, we are changed slightly as a result of that. So I find that real, and I enjoy it, and I felt like that was more or less successfully done for each of the characters, even for Mads, believe it or not, when he realized his total flaw.
Fuck.
Yeah, he destroyed everything that he'd ever hoped for, and his arrogance had brought him so far in life, but it couldn't bring him where he wanted to
All
go.
the way.
How
Right.
poetic is that?
Yeah.
Where he really wanted to go, he never could have gotten.
Yeah. Yeah, I think... Damn. You're not making me think the movie's better, but I like how you're seeing the things I am totally like ignorant to, because I would have never really thought about that. You did also have a week to cook on it.
I did. No, I don't. But the truth is, I hadn't actually.
I saw it less than a day ago.
Fair enough.
So it's still like it's still settling, but I like that. I like how the concept or the narrative point of fate and time is like intertwined in the movie with both Shaw characters, like like how he's obsessed with the dial and it. How does he die? Like he dies, but like how does he die?
Who?
Shaw.
Who is Shaw?
The Indy's friend from when they were younger, Helena's father. He dies, but they don't
tell us how he dies.
dies.
He dies off screen.
Right.
But we get the idea that he's gone. He's been driven mad.
Right. This journey,
however it happens, I get the impression that he met a sort of Edgar Allan Poe fate. They found him bludgeoned over the head in an alleyway or something like that. It's left to the imagination.
Yeah.
I like that.
But we know that the dial kind of drove him to like the end.
Well,
whatever that means.
It's obsession. That's just the idea of obsession, and you see that all throughout the Indiana Jones series.
Even with Indiana Jones,
Last Crusade, absolutely. Remember, he's reaching for the Grail, and Dad, I almost got it. I almost got it. What does he say? Indiana. Let it go. Yeah, let it go.
Indiana.
I can't do Sean. That's my best.
Yeah,
Sean
I was like,
Connery.
that's as good as it's getting. Yeah,
I can't do Antonio either, but. Just to touch on that, I guess he's a big fan. I don't know how. I don't know how he got involved in that.
Was he a friend of Mangold's or something? Like
they wrote him in and then they killed him off. And I was glad to see he was there. I'm glad he's working. I've always liked Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, I got no problem with it. I found it funny.
He's got charisma, but he's not a particularly versatile actor. But he's got charisma.
What did you think about our short round character, who I think his name is Teddy?
Yeah, it's a little weird. he's a good physical actor, right? When he's supposed to be in distress, I believe he is in distress. Okay,
yeah.
there's a bit of a they did the language barrier again, similar to Short Round. It seems a little cheap. It seems like they're kind of
cashing in on the idea.
Prototypical. We'll adjust the race a little bit. Adjust. He's not
The
Indy's
attitude and
sidekick, but he's her
persona.
sidekick. But I thought that he's fine as a physical actor, but he's the language barrier, so he's trouble delivering lines.
You know what I think? I was talking to my dad about this, and I'm like, you know what I think they had him there because somebody had to save them from getting back to the current time. Because that's why he's there.
That's true.
That's why that
He
catalyst.
flies the plane.
Right. I'm just like, and it was so weird the inclusion of the guy in the plane. I'm like, what is it? Who is this guy? I was like, when they panned over to him, I'm like, who is that? Is that like old Indiana Jones who like planted himself there? Like, I'm like, we're about to have this time travel moment. I'm like, is this? No, it's just some random pilot.
No, but I love that too. Finish the thread on Teddy. I liked him. Okay, I didn't.
He's no Short Round.
Did he have? No, exactly. He didn't have the charisma. That's he doesn't have that. Like Short Round has a lot of lines. Two was a really good actor, and I mean not just charisma. I mean like he just had a lot more to work with. So maybe if they gave Teddy more to work with, we would like him more.
Yeah, he kind of comes in. I don't want to say halfway, maybe a little bit before halfway.
And then he's just got these. He's always tagging along, but he doesn't have that larger role.
When they go to Sicily, and I'm like, he's coming with. I'm like, they're just bringing him along.
Well, I mean, that's Phoebe. She was bringing him along.
Yeah, true. I didn't like how they were very money focused. I found that like to be this like I was saying, like this irredeemable quality of theirs, and I couldn't understand like where their loyalties and like their characters actually lied in like the moral spectrum.
That sounds like Harrison. That sounds like Han Solo. It's right? No, it's
no. It's a good point. It's a good point.
Okay, so like avarice is the root of all evil. That's where it goes back.
Why are you getting the treasure? Money.
Yeah,
she says it like 3 or 4 times.
But right away she goes. Why does she go after that treasure if she's going to just try to sell it?
Right, and that's where I'm like, well, this is bullshit because she's motivated by her father.
Because I think there's a sentimentality to it, and I think a part of her wants Indiana Jones to chase her and take it away. Right? I think that there's there's a subconscious level of that character that exists there, because obviously that's what ends up happening. So I was off put by it as well. I thought, wait, but she's really trying to gamble this thing away.
She's like immediately selling this thing,
it strikes me as odd.
Yeah. And I think that's what it was, like the oddness of the character. I'm like, I just was like, I feel like she should clearly stand somewhere, and she's not. She's like on the fence of being good and bad constantly, and maybe that's interesting and different. I mean, it is to kind of play my opposite point, but it just didn't feel necessary to do that.
What makes Han Solo a good character?
Because he's ambiguous.
He comes back. Right? He has everything. He finally gets the money.
Right.
He finally gets the. He has everything that he ever wanted, and he leaves. But then he comes back.
Right.
All right.
And he still does at the end of the day. He does the right thing.
Yeah. Correct.
Right.
So, how do you make a character interesting? Okay. What you have to do is you have to introduce some form of, like you said, moral ambiguity. And she's got daddy issues. I mean, like, not to, I mean, like, that's what it, you know what I mean?
Fine.
That's what she's got. She's, her father went insane and died at a very early age. And just before that happened, she saw a conflict with this guy, and she spent her entire life obsessing over it, right? And we already know about the theme of obsession and how that plays out throughout the entire series. And then we've got Indiana Jones. His son is now dead, okay? His wife is now estranged from him. Yeah. He's retired from his you said he's basically at rock bottom. Right. He's literally drinking alone.
And think about it. Like, what if we saw him, like, post-retirement? He would really be on rock bottom, right? He doesn't even have a job anymore.
And he would have so this what it is it's an opportunity for him, I guess, redemption to a certain extent for him, because he didn't have the ability, he couldn't save his son, okay, and for her because she couldn't save her father, right? So you get these. It's almost like broken puzzle pieces that don't seem to have all that much in common on the surface, but they sort of fit together perfectly. And in spite of themselves, they end up saving each other, all of them, even the surrogate short round. All of these different characters come together. And the other thing is when you're coming full circle is you've got Indiana Jones, who had daddy issues himself, okay, going back to Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then in the end, we bookend that. He becomes the father, right? And not the father that he was or that we were supposed to have seen, because he just found out he's the father in Crystal Skull. But he becomes the actual father in this one, right? And then Marion comes back, and everybody high fives, and it's a happy ending. But
Very happy ending.
yes,
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for. Okay?
Which I thought was
I am.
interesting. I'm like, I didn't, I like when they, going back to when they were back in time. He's like, I'm gonna stay, and I'm like, oh shit, like, is that how we're ending with him gone? Like, are they, like,
Were you saying like I was? No, don't do it.
No, I was like,
you'll ruin the movie. I was
Yeah,
like, don't do it, Indy. I'm like, no.
I was saying it. No, don't do it.
Don't do
You'll
it.
ruin the movie.
You'll ruin-
Like, 'cause
I'm
that's,
not-
I'm like this. I'm like, don't do that.
You
I'm like,
can't leave it. You
Yeah,
can't.
I'm like, I don't know if that's how I want it to end. I was just like, yeah. I'm like that. Like, it would be kind of weird too.
It would have been awful.
What time paradoxes would that open? I really find it funny how there's these like naturally occurring wormholes in the sky.
I mean, what are you gonna do? You got to do something.
Yeah,
It's-
it was just funny. I'm like, wouldn't that like swallow the world? Like, that thing is like got to be like very powerful. But so, not to like drag that discussion on, but is the only fissure in time the fissure back to where he existed?
Yeah, I think that was the one that Archimedes was able to identify.
And it only opens at
Yeah.
certain times.
And yeah, that was the connection that he had, and it just happened to work out that way.
And he never makes the dial?
No, he will make the dial as a result of that. Or he'll finish the dial.
Right, 'cause
There was a prototype of it.
Right.
He'll finish it after that, and he'll die with the watch and everything, and then they will eventually, all those years later, uncover the two pieces, which are broken in half, and then we're back to the train at the beginning of the movie.
Right. It does.
So
yeah.
because
that's what I was thinking. I'm
the
like,
full
wait, does
circle.
he finish the dial because of the dial he finished? And like, how did he finish that to begin
what
with?
does the dial look like? It looks like a watch, right?
Yeah, it's a timepiece.
Well, he's got the watch.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Oh, true.
the inspiration. It was
Right.
a combination of his I don't know,
Ingenuity?
magical powers or whatever. It's because it's very much a mathematical equation. But I also like the fact that Indiana Jones addresses the mystical. He says, "I've seen things that I can't explain." And
Right.
he
And he has. Right, we know
what
that.
is it? I love what is it? You weren't forced to drink the blood of Kali.
Yeah,
That's the best line in the
Yeah.
entire movie. I was
Yeah.
like, that is awesome.
I'm glad they brought the Temple of Doom shit up. I was just like, you know what's funny? I don't really think Indiana Jones calls back on itself often in really any of its movies, but I'm kind of glad they did here. Like with the addressing of the Crystal Skull stuff, with the line you just had, I'm like, he's like referencing the journeys he's been on and like maybe the absurdity of them. And, obviously that scene, like the Temple of Doom is just a crazy movie to begin with.
they do that a little bit in Crystal Skull when Marcus Brody is dead, and then they sort of but it's this like one line to explain away this character that played a relatively significant role in the original series. I felt like it didn't have respect.
And then
this does.
what's the guy who plays Gimli's name?
John Rhys Davies.
And he plays, what's his character?
I mean,
name?
whatever. They Sala, they bring Sala
and he's
back.
like, dude, the end when he's running out, he's like, I scream. He's like, I'm like, this is hilarious.
Very silly.
Yeah.
You know what?
Give him hell, Indiana Jones.
They
or
brought
whatever
him.
he says.
See, that's okay. Is that a little bit of the nostalgia?
I like that. I think it was fine.
Me too. I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I'm
either.
like,
But
this makes sense. That
did
he
it
was-
need to happen? No.
No.
But is it a good time?
Sure.
Correct.
Yeah.
So like, what else do you want from a movie? I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think
Summer movie.
I think over analyzing this doesn't help it.
Yeah, not at all.
Like sort of I am. I'm like, nah, I'm not trying to be negative. I don't, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think I've been like that negative.
I don't think
but
you've-
I think I'm just kind of like looking at it and kind of, because we're being critical, picking it apart a little bit.
I mean,
as we would do with anything.
It's the nature of explication. You know,
Right.
you take a poem and you put it on you tack it up on. I had a professor said you tack it up on the wall and then you rip it apart.
Yeah, yeah. And before we ended it, I don't really think there's anything else we're skipping or missing. There's always something we miss. But Trio wrote in to give me his thoughts a little bit, just so he could be included in the podcast a little bit. So he had this to say. Overall, I enjoyed Dial of Destiny much more than I was expecting. So same ballpark as me. And I guess you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The performances were all around stellar for me, but there was one too many action scenes, and the de-aging at the beginning did nothing but distract me. I will admit...
Yeah, I think he's right about it.
It's a bit long in the tooth. We didn't mention that. I think it is a bit long in the tooth.
I agree.
Shave off a good half hour, and I think you have a solid, if not great, indie film. I didn't love Indy's character setup at the beginning because it's almost identical to how we find Han Solo in Episode 7, but the scene where he explains what happened to him makes up for that. Probably my favorite scene in the film. His goddaughter was a good addition as well. She grew on me throughout. I give it all a solid 7. There's a potential 9 in another cut of this movie. I don't disagree with like anything that he said. Maybe I think
that's pretty good analysis.
Yeah, I think we have a difference with Helena Shaw, but I think overall he's pretty on point. Yeah, I think we could have shaved off some time.
Yeah.
And I think it's the middle where we're on the ship and we're going between the underwater portion. By the way, Antonio Banderas' character makes a point to talk about depressurizing, and what do? Not depressurize. They would have died instantly. Just saying.
I mean,
but he's like, when you come up, 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm like Deep Star 6. When the guy explodes, I'm like, I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah, it's very dangerous, and they were pretty deep. But yeah, it kind of like dances and drags in the middle, like a bit too much, and I think that's where they could have shaved time off. But hey, it is what it is. Not everything's perfect. Pat, anything else you want to say before we close this out?
No, I don't think so.
Well, dude, thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. You've now been on the proper series. I know our Rewinder series is kind of like a little seasonal thing we do, but you've been on a review now, and we appreciate it, man. You always have great insights into film that I just do not have and probably never will. So I appreciate it.
You never know. Wait 20 years.
So if you've been watching live on twitch.tv/Delco Nerd Network, we very much appreciate it. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are found, including youtube.com/Delco Nerd Network. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Delco Nerds. All this information can be found on our website, www.delconerdnetwork.com, where you can join our Discord and join in all the fun discussions. I know we were talking about Indiana Jones's weekend box office stuff. We usually talk about box office stuff, I feel like, for Flash. God rest that poor movie. It didn't deserve those low numbers. But anyway, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again next time. Stay nerdy.